totally reorganize itself. It reorganizes the mass over the spinning wheel in such a way that it appears to be motionless. And I don't know, she did it. It's possible. I never thought it would be possible. So that is answer part number 1 to your question. So now that I feel like this is as centered as I can get. Looks pretty perfect. It's not quite, but without spending the rest of the evening trying to do it. I'm going to support with my left hand, and I'm going to slowly, don't go straight down, kind of go diving in. So you're looking for that center, and see how this little bit of clay coming up. So you're not forcing the center to be somewhere, you're allowing the center to form in the middle of the mass. And then when you're deep enough, I'm going to widen by pulling into my palm of my left hand, so that it's wider inside a little bit, and then there's that little bulge. So I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to. You could be referring to that too.
No, not the bulge. Exactly what you just did. I think that was one of the mistakes, is I go straight down.
Right.
Maybe I'm not going in.
Right. And rather than using one finger, use two.
That I was doing.
Right.
But I think the other thing was what you mentioned, when you're, maybe when I'm centering it, doing it too softly, so it's more on the outside and not the inside.
Right. So it may not be too centered and open. And all this is still like the opening, the compressing the bottom, compressing this rim. This was all still part of centering as far as I'm concerned. So now that it's set and centered, now I can start lifting. So inside fingers, left hand fingers, go inside. And my first lift is more about just bringing that bulge that was heavier above the very bottom, that joint, evening that part out into the wall and compressing it. And then, once I feel like it's evened out and now the shape is the same inside and outside, I will go a little bit more aggressively. So I'll push out and I wait again a few revolutions. 1, 2, 3, and softly bring it up. And one of the things I feel that's very easy to overlook is to maintain a consistent tempo. So when you're lifting, pick a whatever, like your speed, your pace, your tempo, and stick to it. Don't change in the midst. Don't go faster, slower, because then you wind up with a sausage of a wall. So it's like a thicker, thinner, thicker, thinner, thicker, thinner.
How many pounds was that, Outi?
This is 2 and maybe 1/4. So I have one more little lift there before I start shaping it. And I'm leaving the top a little bit heavier purposely, so that there's some material here to set up for the lid. So again, bring a little bit of water down. Square at the base, push out, wait a few revolutions. 1, 2, 3. And
You're going at like medium speed.
Yeah. Not too fast, not too slow.
Do you mean the wheel or above the wheel?
Yeah. And one of the things that will help you maybe in thinking of how things work is that the wheel should always make a full, complete revolution before your hands are moved upwards. So if you're if the wheel is going too slowly, somebody had this issue today, and that reminded me of it. If you're spinning too slowly and you're moving too slowly, you will wind up with an oval pot. So the spinning of the wheel will provide the momentum to keep it symmetrical and round too. So it is possible to throw an oval pot. Just do it really slowly. So now I'll start shaping it. So my first step is to straighten it out a little. Moisten that inside wall a little. So I'm not lifting as much anymore. I'm still lifting a little bit just to even things out and straighten things out. Quietly, and still not letting this top get much thinner or maintaining that thickness there. See, I just bumped into the rim. And now, if you'd like to, you can dry it off. Use the wooden rib or the wooden stick. Dry off a little. And this could be just a canister as is. You know, you could just put a lid on it and say, we're done.
Put some cookies in.
Put some cookies in. But let's make a little bit of a shape because I think we've made enough cylinders for the next 5 years. In this class. So I'm going to make a little markers. So I'm going to make a marker for the neck part and marker for where I want the belly to be widest. And that helps me to decide where and how much to expand and where it changes direction. Not everyone is so directionally challenged as I am, so you may not need to do that, but I just feel like it's easier to see as I'm looking down and my hands are moving where I need to change direction. And before I did that, I'm undercutting a little bit, so I'm taking that extra clay that's possibly preventing me from getting everything evened out of the way. A little water. Same thing, I'm still lifting a little bit. It's not just pushing it out. There's a little bit of a squeeze between the hands. So it's bringing it out. So you're not losing too much height. And I'll taper it gradually until I get to that line. And then I'll go the other direction from above it.
So you're pushing one way with your in.
The inside hand is widening into your outside hand. And now I'm doing the opposite. See, the inside hand is receiving from the outside in order to bring it back in. So out is pushing, and outside hand controls how far, and going in is pushing in, and inside hand controls how far. So I find that this helps me see the width of my belly the best. So now what I need to do next is to curve these. So this will not change anymore. That will be the same, but I'm just going to put a little curve to meet that and a little curve to become the shoulder. So just a gentle expansion. And see how that changed, just a little curve, and then do the same above it. it becomes one continuous curve. And if you are comfortable using a rib, at this point you can dry things out, compress the wall, but you can also just leave the throwing lines alone, which I feel like that terracotta pot that you took a photo of is like such a true tribute to like beautiful throwing and how those throwing lines just add one more element to the liveliness of the surface. And I don't want this to become too shouldery, so be careful that this kind of stays in the middle of the belly so that it doesn't widen too far on the shoulder and it doesn't widen too far out on the hips. The strength is always in the curve, so the more severe it becomes somewhere, like either on the hip or on the shoulder, the weaker it will get because it will want to sit down on that place. So by keeping it sort of arced, rounded, it will stay more within its own strength. So I can now widen this out maybe a tiny bit more right here at the bottom. But again, keeping this the same. So it just rounded this off just a little more. And then I'll widen the top. So this is by far the easiest way to make a cover. I'm just going to open this out a little. So it's like
You're like a magician.
Pull that open so that you have a tapered out plane that will be able to host a lid. And the lid can be anywhere from this width, a little bit wider, to up here, and it'll still fit. So that's why I like this particular setup as your starter lid. It's a general purpose lid.
That's nice because making an exact lid
Is
a
hard.
big challenge.
Is hard and not necessary always.
You wouldn't really use that kind of lid for a teapot.
No, nothing hot that you pour out of. Very true. Cookies, cotton balls,
Okay.
chocolates,
Coffee bean.
coffee beans, rice, sugar, whatever, regular beans, dry beans. So now, those of you who are able to throw without difficulty to this point are not allowed to use a caliper.
Oh, you're hardcore.
Right. So I'm actually not going to measure it just to show you. And then I'll just undercut it a little more one last time, a little less to trim later. And I'll take it off. And there are very many ways to make covers on things.
You want a piece of paper?
I have one. Thank you. So that kind of blend it all in so that now there'll be maybe just a tiny bit less to trim. There. Take my board and pull the wire through. Dry hand, give it a little twist, and slide it off. Okay.
You have to do that with confidence.
Pottery is a
Or-
faith-based activity. You have to believe in it. You
And-
have to believe in it. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Hallelujah.
If you don't think you can do it, then it won't happen.
That's how much you need for the lid?
Yes, so 2/3, 1/3.
Really?
Yes. So that was 2 times this. So it was 3 1/4 total. That was 2 1/4. This is just over a 1. So This is a great lid because it's right side up, and so you don't have to think about much of anything other than the diameter. So I'll center this first, and again I'm just going to push into it.
This is a contribution.
Try to get this to center. And this is, so when you watch videos and read the different writings, it always says don't do a mushroom. Here's where you want the mushroom. Because we want this to be a little bit higher so we can reach underneath it. So I'm going to squeeze it a little more and cut in a little bit at the base. So it's up higher. And I'll clean this off a little so we get the okay. And now instead of opening right in the middle, I'm going to open it on either side. Magic! Do we see where it's going?
And you use 2 fingers and not one? You prefer that?
Either side. So either side of the center. And you can make this into a hollow knob or a solid knob. I feel like for our first knob, it's going to be a solid knob, so I'm just going to compress that a little
That is so adorable.
for now. Have you not seen this,
No.
Joanne? Oh my God, Joanne.
I know.
Well, I guess it is the forever make a cylinder with a bowl and a plate to follow class. Been for the past few years. So now I will widen this. So I have this stem here. So I'm going to press down instead of and out to widen this whole lid.
But you're not measuring, you're just eyeballing it.
I'm just eyeballing it. So, and that's really the beauty of this, is that it can be anything
Unless it
as long as
falls
it's
through the top.
wider, as long as it's wider than your opening. So, and I trust that everyone can do that. So, again, a little wider.
And then will you have to trim it, or it'll just be,
It will be trimmed upside down on top of that pot.
really?
Upside down.
Upside down so that it fits into it. So I feel like that's probably fine. It will be fine. It'll fit somewhere in that
Do you
that
need to make
space.
an indent to the knob for the handle?
So now we're gonna make the handle. So once I feel like I have the width and I have enough of,
Right.
and this angle is not too severe, maybe I'll lower this just a little bit, just to give it a little. So I just made that a little bit of a well. And now, I like this part the best, because you get to make a knob. So, I'm going to squeeze it, and you don't have to worry about anything because it's solid. So I'm going to start squeezing it upwards.
Gee, son, you're getting all this.
Mm-hmm.
I want this.
Okay.
I want it.
So you're squeezing it upwards. One of the things that we've talked about a million times about knobs is what?
I never recall talking to you about
Oh, we
knobs.
haven't talked about knobs.
No.
No.
You've dreamed about it.
Well, I talk to everybody else about knobs. Well, here's the knob talk. Make sure that it works, right? So
that's a
if
good
it's a
idea.
knob, it shouldn't be something that you can't hold. So if it's a tiny little thingy that you're gonna
I have a few knobs like that at home.
And it's so annoying,
It
right?
looked nice at the time, but
Right.
you know, it's
Don't
not
work.
functional.
Don't work. Now, think that you want to go with your oily fingers for the cookies. So, you want to make sure you can hold that knob. So, that said, I'm going to make enough of a differentiation here.
I am loving this.
So number one, that it's comfortable with. And then I'm just going to flatten this down just a little bit.
So darn clever.
And here's my knob.
Dude.
So you could make
Candle holder.
candle holders. What else? Ring holders. What else?
What holder did you?
Ring holder.
A little fountain.
Yes. And one thing, I don't know if Julian, did you ever make a citrus juicer?
No.
So that's summer project. That's like when we all drink margaritas, we make citrus juice.
Okay. Not orange juice, but.
Right. Right. So this could also turn into a citrus juicer. If you hollow this out and made it into a closed dome, then it turns into a citrus juicer. So all these things come out of this particular form. And I'll compress one last time to make sure that my form is.
The other thing that we did that one that I was watching was ring holders.
Yes.
Did you mention it?
Yes, I did.
Oh, it's over there, okay.
Yes.
Right.
So I think they go together nice enough.
Yeah, or else you could even imitate the shape of the vessel
You could.
itself.
You could. I will show
Huh.
you something
That's interesting.
that I did with another class.
What? Another class? You're seeing another class? I don't want to hear about it, OT.
So
You were
now,
those perfect throwers in your other class.
right. So now, just to make sure.
Oh, now you're gonna check.
Yeah. Well, just to demonstrate, for just
She's not really
demonstration
measuring,
purposes.
she's just sort of.
Demonstration purposes, we will make sure that we are in the right ballpark here.
It's not
So
gonna fall into the belly.
it's not gonna, that I know. I'm worried if anything that I'm a little wide. So that's the
Top.
top.
Perfecto.
Oh.
Yeah.
I hate you.
Well, it's true what Julian said earlier, that we are so unwilling to trust our ability to measure things, and we use it all the time in other places, so why not here?
We go by eye measuring through life every moment.
Exactly, exactly. How far is that car? How far is Ellen? How far
How far is that step?
Exactly, exactly.
Where